Nier Automata, Sekiro, and the Book of Genesis. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect video game. But Shift Up purposefully added some extra ingredients to the concoction. Say what you will about Stellar Blade borrowing ideas from outside sources, it does a really good job of meshing it all together to create a really fun game. That said, I've seen a lot of people saying the story is a bit lacking, and while I can see where some of that's coming from, I have to say overall I disagree. At face value, yeah, it's pretty cut and dry, but there's a lot going on in the background here for a lore nerd like myself to really dive into. That said, it is worth noting that some of the terms in this game overlap and phrasing can often feel misleading or incomplete, so things can get fairly convoluted fairly easily. So today, I will be doing my best to walk you through my take of Stellar Blade and hopefully clear up what exactly I think is going on. As a side note, I'll be covering the story chronologically first, and I'll be adding in some of my thoughts that went through my head as I was playing, not necessarily what I know later. Although I will be adding in some lore-relevant things from the data intel as we go. And then once we're done with that, I'm going to go back through and we're going to be talking about the story that's going on in the background here. And finally, just a bit of a heads up before we begin, this is going to be spoiler heavy, so if you haven't played the game and want to experience it for yourself, now's your chance to duck out before you do, but make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that once you have played the game, you can hop right back in and join the conversation. And with that out of the way, on to Stellar Blade. We open up in space as humanity is preparing for an assault on the surface, and things go pretty poorly right from the beginning. Making it down to the beach, our pod door jams, but thankfully Taki's here to open it up and bail us out, and we are now introduced to our main character Eve, who is a member of the 7th Airborne Squad, and we're here to take out something called the Elder Natiba. Now, first things first, we need to clear out the local Alpha, so the two of us will make our way across the beach to rendezvous with the rest of the squad, and we find them fighting a rather sizable Natiba. Unfortunately, one of our dropships, well, drops and takes out the team, but don't celebrate just yet because the Natiba's fine. Making quick work of our foe, this turns out it's not the Alpha we were looking for, but speak of the devil, it makes his presence known. Taki squares up for a fight, but our Alpha's a clever girl, and like any good predator, makes a beeline to the weak and injured. Jumping into the last second, Taki sacrifices herself to save Eve, and cue title card. We now find ourselves in 807, the last human city before society collapsed. We're joined by a small drone piloted by Adam, a human survivor on Earth who managed to pull Eve out of the way while the Alpha was distracted. And we make our way through this city and it quickly becomes apparent that this is Eve's first time on Earth. So a bit of background here, Eve is what many people refer to as an angel, super soldiers sent by Mother Sphere tasked with retaking the Earth from Natiba. And if you're wondering what the Natiba are, well, we'll get more into that later, but for now, all we really know is that a long time ago they showed up and quickly overran the planet. Humanity fought back in what is known as the Final War, but was ultimately forced to retreat to a colony in orbit, and the Natiba chased them up there, at which point part of the colony collapsed, causing what is known as the colony extinction. Supposedly this wiped out all life on the surface with the exception of the remaining Natiba, which is why Eve is surprised to find that Adam and other survivors are alive on the surface. Anyway, back to the task at hand, our goal in 807 is twofold. Eve is here to complete her mission to take out the local Alpha Natiba, while Adam is after something called a hyperdrive currently located in the Hall of Records. Swinging by the Hall of Records, we're given a short lore dump.
22세기 초 급속한 온난화로 인해 인류의 생존권이 흔들리고 있었습니다. 이를 경고했던 마더 스피어는 인류의 진화를 이루어냈습니다. 인내와 적응만으로 수천 년이 걸리는 인류의 과제를 해결한 것입니다. 심장을 대체한 바디셀은 산소와 물이 없는 환경에서도 생존할 수 있게 해주었습니다. 생물공학과 나노기술의 발달로 노화나 질병이 생명의 위협이 되는 시기 또한 지나갔습니다. 그리고 위험산업, 우주 개발에도 놀라운 약진을 가져다 주었습니다. 심해의 수압을 견딜 수 있으며 우주복을 입지 않고 우주선 밖을 나갈 수 있게 되었습니다.
Now this is great and all, but it brings up a question that I kind of had during the rest of the game. So we don't need oxygen and we don't need water, but do we still need food? Because there are hot pots provided at all the camps throughout the game. Now, is this provided out of necessity, leisure, or aesthetics? And actually going back, I found the answer in the data intel. So yeah, it seems we do still need to eat. Hyperdrive now in tow, it's time to head for the Alpha, which we find near a 5th Airborne Squad drop pod. Upon taking out the Alpha, we retrieve its core, and Adam seems like he's about to tell us something when he's suddenly interrupted by a pounding coming from inside the pod. Cracking it open, we're introduced to the third member of our team, Lily, and right away, I'm suspicious. I mean, come on, Adam, Eve, Lily. I've seen this story before. And right here is our first opportunity to look at just how sometimes in this game, things can be a little bit convoluted or confusing. See, Lily tells us she's an engineer from the 5th Airborne Squad, and we just pulled her out of a 5th Airborne Squad drop pod. So the logical conclusion would be that she was trapped inside after probably the door malfunctioned. You know, similar to what happened to us. Now the issue is she updates the team on her status off screen, and then we get kind of a TLDR recap from Adam mentioning that she's been in hiding for 2 years, which at first sounds really nuts, like she's been trapped inside this pod for 2 years. But then given that we just learned that the body core allows you to survive without oxygen or water, you know, it's actually not outside the realm of possibility that, yeah, maybe she was trapped inside this thing for 2 years. But it turns out that we're going to find out much later that's not the case. And even Adam seemed to know this, but we as the player have no clue. So it just kind of comes up at the last second like, oh, wow, okay, yeah. Anyway, Lily in tow, we now make our way to Zion, the last human settlement on Earth, which is news to Eve and Lily because, you know, they thought that everybody on the surface was dead. So in Zion, we're introduced to Oracle, the city's founder, leader, and prophet. He informs us that in order to find the Elder Natiba, we're going to need to collect 4 Alpha Cores to access the nests. That's where the Elder Natiba is. And he can help us locate them, but he's going to need our help collecting hyperdrives to increase the range of his personal link, which allows him to sense them and see things further afield. Oracle isn't the only one benefiting from the hyperdrive, though. Zion is home to the Cradle, a huge storage facility where people are kept in effectively suspended animation. The long and short of it is that while the body core does allow you to survive without oxygen or water, it is still in effect a battery, and over time it will run out of energy. Before that happens, people need to return to the Cradle to recharge, and Zion being short of energy means that it can only support so many people up and about at a given time. The more hyperdrives we collect, the more people will be able to wake up. But the Cradle also has a second purpose. In the event that somebody does die, their memory stick can be recovered, preserving everything that person ever thought and felt. Now, in the past, those memories would be returned to Mother Sphere. However, ever since the colony extinction, people on the surface have lost their connection with the network, which is why people in the colony think that they're all dead. So to kind of recap, memories are seen as the soul, returning to Mother Sphere is seen as heaven, and the Cradle is kind of a limbo where these memories can basically just chill until we can reestablish contact with Mother Sphere. So we install the hypercell, and this restores power back to Zion and the Cradle. It's enough to keep them running for a while, but not enough that Oracle can identify where the next Alpha Natiba is. So instead, he sends us after another hypercell located in a nearby facility called Altus Levoir. And a bit of a side note here, this is Oracle's bodyguard, Man, and he is criminally underused in this game. I love this guy's design. In fact, a lot of characters in this game have really great designs, and it's kind of a shame that we don't get to know some of them. So before we go, we have a little bit of time to explore around Zion, and it becomes pretty quickly apparent that this is not the idyllic post-apocalyptic dystopia that it sells itself as. Feeling abandoned since the colony extinction, several people have lost faith in Mother Sphere, and by extension, Oracle. And as a result, there's lots of rumors going around, and honestly, I'm a bit suspicious myself. So we make our way across the wasteland to Altus Levoir, and right away, there's something bothering me. You know how there are those people that get all bent out of shape when characters don't interact with water correctly? You know, like they hop in and there's no waves, or they come out dry, you know, and that just bothers some people. Okay, well for me, it's footprints. I don't know why, maybe I played too much Journey, but when I'm playing a game, I just like to see the trail of footprints in the sand or in the snow or that sort of thing. And right away, I noticed that Eve does not leave footprints. So yeah. Am I the only one that feels this way? There's got to be at least one other person out there that feels the same. Anyway, arriving at Altus Levoir, we meet one of the Royal Guard, who's been tasked by Oracle to prevent people from trying to enter this facility unless they can prove themselves in a trial, which we obviously passed. Entering the facility, it's immediately made apparent that things aren't exactly what they seem. First of all, the interior is way more modern than the outside would suggest. And second, there's some kind of form of interference going on here that prevents Eve from using her blade. and also prevents the drone from scanning. It can still use its gun function, however, so basically, for this next dungeon, it's going to be Dead Space. Moving further inside, it becomes apparent that we're in some kind of research facility. And furthermore, on top of that, it appears that the Natiba here are far more humanoid, with some of them even wearing clothes or hazmat suits. On top of that, if we're reading the data logs, we can see that humanity was fighting against something that was trying to mimic or replace them. Working our way through and defeating the final Natiba, we do retrieve the hypercore, but just as we're about to leave, Eve notices a legacy left by Raven, a member of the 2nd Airborne Squad, which confirms that this facility was in fact used to study Natiba, but also reveals that prior to the final war against the Natiba, humans had actually fought another war against the Androidos, androids humanity had themselves created. And what's more, humanity had actually lost that war and retreated underground to facilities such as this one. Then, shortly after retreating underground, the Natiba showed up and destroyed the Androidos, allowing humanity an opportunity to escape to the colony. Now, Eve seems strangely surprised by this to find out that there was actually another war prior to the final war. But as Adam points out, that actually human conflict is pretty common across our history. So to think that there was a war before the final war is not all that surprising. Now, if Eve seems a little bit naive here, there is actually a reason for it, but we'll be getting into that later. So yeah, just for now, notice that a lot of stuff is going to be surprising her when it should seem like common sense to the rest of us. Anyway, returning to Oracle, we install the 2nd hypercore, and more power means that more people can wake up, so Zion becomes a little bit more alive with more citizens roaming about. The extra juice also allows Oracle to locate the next Alpha Natiba, and it turns out it's in a place called Matrix 11, which is an old subway network. Before we go, though, there are 2 side quests that I'd like to quickly address, both of them taking us back to 807. The first is given to us by a citizen of Zion interested in history, specifically the history of organic humans. Strangely, any mention of them seems absent from any historical record, so yeah, it seems it's not only Eve who's ignorant of the past here. Heading over to the Hall of Records, however, our search is met with an error that says that these records are prohibited by the Mother Sphere Doctrine, and trying to access them again would be seen as an attack against Mother Sphere. So yeah, that's interesting. The second quest is given to us by an unknown informant who gives us a code to drain the flooded district. Exploring the district, we come across a scene of a crime. So remember back when I mentioned that there were some people doubting the purpose of the cradle? Well, it seems a few decided to take it upon themselves to leave Zion and strike it out on their own. But someone didn't like that, and so they took out the whole group and flooded the entire district to hide the evidence. Now, the weapon used seems pretty advanced, so Adam thinks it could have been another angel, but Eve points out that that's not the kind of weapon that they use. So who else is highly skilled and uses advanced weaponry? Suspicions aside and side quests completed, we head over to Matrix 11 and begin working our way through. About halfway through, Eve is overwhelmed by a scream, which seems really odd because Natiba are supposed to be mindless animals and incapable of hacking comms. So Lily suggests that this could be an Airborne Squad survivor deeper inside, so we make our way down to investigate. A little further in, we come across one of the sadder parts in the game. Turns out Zion is, or at least was not, the only small bastion of humanity surviving. In here, we find a small community that had survived for a while until they were eventually taken out by the Natiba. Now, these people seem to have maintained their faith in Mother Sphere and were hoping that she would send someone to rescue them, but hope never came. They had collected all their memories together, though, and so Eve decides that what she's going to do is she's going to collect them, and then when she has the opportunity to return to Mother Sphere herself, she's going to take these memories with her. Working our way through the remainders of the tunnel, we finally come up to the water purification system, where we find the Alpha. And it's Taki. She's somehow managed to survive, but she apparently is not herself because she immediately goes on the offensive. And again, Stellar Blade demonstrates how it wears its influences on its sleeve, because about halfway through the fight, she goes full one-winged angel. And then later on gets what looks like a Genova arm. Bit of a side note here, when you beat Taki, you unlock something called Taki mode. And so I thought I'd be clever on my second playthrough and give her a taste of her own medicine. But yeah, it didn't go so well. So yeah, guess I'm not beating the goat. Anyway, upon defeat, Taki returns to her senses and asks Eve to return her memories to Mother Sphere, assuming they haven't already been corrupted. Reporting back to Oracle, he seems to find something a bit odd with this latest Alpha Nativa. He takes a look at Taki's memory stick and notes that it's different than the Elder. Seems that this Alpha was created by a black-winged Nativa, which should sound familiar. It also seems that this particular Alpha Nativa has a very specific grudge against humanity. Unfortunately, he can't locate it just yet, so we're going to need to go to Abyss Levoir to pick up another hypercell. As we're heading out, Eve swears vengeance against the Blackwing Nativa, but Adam kind of makes this little side comment about how this is not the kind of mistake you can make twice. This is going to come up later, so just remember this. And while we're at it, let's check out the legacy we found in Matrix 11. It's Raven again, and she seems to have made another discovery. Turns out Mother Sphere is not a god, but rather an AI created by mankind. Which, again, should seem obvious to us, but to Eve this is news. Turns out, Mother Sphere was created by a man named Raphael Marx, who, according to Data Intel entries, was the owner of Eidos, one of the largest and most powerful companies in the world at the time. Now, at first, things were going pretty well. Mother Sphere turned out to be a real boon for humanity. That was until she decided to create the Andro Eidos, the androids that humans were fighting in the war prior to the final war. This wasn't exactly a Skynet situation, though. See, Mother Sphere has always been acting in the best interest of humanity. It's just that humanity here comes with a massive set of air quotes. And this is where the game really started to grip me. This idea of, not God created man and man, ate the fruit or any of that, but this idea that man created God and God found man wanting. Now, Eve and especially Lily are pretty shook up by this revelation, but as Adam points out, many people in Zion lost faith in Mother Sphere a long time ago and have been kind of suspecting her motives for a while now. So anyway, it's off to Abyss Levoir, where we are greeted by another member of the Royal Guard, who requires us to pass yet another trial to enter, and of course, we pass, and go down inside, and once again, it's another guns or nothing situation. So a bit of a sidebar here, I had a complete brain fart at this point in the game. To get to Abyss Levoir, you have to go through the desert. And to get to the desert, we had to fly through a sandstorm, which did damage to the tetrapod. So Adam says he's going to get out and repair it. So because he's doing that, if you try to access him at this point in the game, you can't use the tetrapod to get to any other places. You're stuck in the desert. However, there is one location in the desert which allows you access back to Zion. And in Zion, you can see the tetrapod on the landing pad where it's always been. From there, you can use it to go anywhere else in the game, including the desert. And if you've done that and then you go back to Adam in the desert because you've already used the tetrapod once, you can now use it to go anywhere. So I had completely forgotten that plot-wise, Adam was repairing this thing. And when we get into Abyss Levoir, Lily says that she's going to take over drone duties because Adam is otherwise occupied. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I kind of had a distrust of Lily because of this whole, Adam-Lilith thing. So when she said that he was unavailable because he was doing repairs and she would be running the drone, I was pretty sure there was some backstabbing afoot. Also, while we're on the topic, the name Tetrapod, in my opinion, is a complete missed opportunity. If it were up to me, I would have named it the... Anyway, about halfway through Abyss Levoir, Adam comes back on comms, and he's actually kind of miffed that we started without him. And at this point, I'm starting to wonder if maybe I misjudged Lily. So once again, we defeat the boss, we get the hypercell, and wouldn't you know it, there's another legacy waiting for us. This time, Raven is filling us in on yet another discovery. So shock, we are the Andro Eidos, because it wasn't glaringly obvious to Eve and Lily. And here's where things get really muddied by semantics. Alright, so human in this game actually refers to two separate groups. The organic humans and the Andro Eidos. Which is why when we said earlier Mother Sphere wasn't exactly a Skynet situation, she wasn't. Because in her mind, the Andro Eidos are humanity. They're just a new humanity. But this is why it gets so confusing. Because basically you get story like this. After humanity lost to humanity, humanity went underground while humanity survived on the surface with no memory of humanity. So you can see why this gets confusing. So let's simplify. After the organic humans lost to the Andro-Eidos, organic humans retreated to underground facilities like the Levoir, while the Andro-Eidos lived on the surface. Over time, Mother Sphere erased the memory of the organic humans from the Andro-Eidos, and the Andro-Eidos thrived. And just to keep things simple, from now on, I'm just going to try to refer to humanity like you and me as organic humans, and humanity like Eve as the Andro-Eidos. Anyway, organic humans didn't just sit idle this whole time. In an attempt to retake the surface, they began using bioengineering to help themselves rapidly evolve, resulting in, you guessed it, the Natiba. But in the process, they effectively lost their humanity, sacrificing intelligence for brute strength. So yeah, humanity can now apply to 3 different things. But Raven does leave out one tiny detail. Going through the data intel, we can see a series of logs between Raphael Marx and an AI called Raffi. So yes, that's the same Raphael Marx that created Mother Sphere. He also created the Natiba. Anyway, what's made clear is 3 things. A, the organic humans were developing the Natiba as biological weapons. B, whatever process they were using to do this was contagious. And C, Mother Sphere attacked the facility and the Natiba got out. Now, what's not really clear is A, were the test subjects lab grown from human tissue or were they experimenting on actual human beings? B, given that the priority of the experiment was power over control, were the Natiba kind of an end goal weapon, or was this merely the first step and then later on humans would be able to evolve to a point where they would be able to, survive alongside the Andro-Eidos or compete with them? And C, did Mother Sphere release the contamination on purpose or maybe by accident, causing all the remaining humans to mutate into Natiba? Or was this purposefully released by the last surviving humans as kind of a final you to Mother Sphere? Anyway, here are the relevant logs, so feel free to pause the video, read them yourself, and draw your own conclusions, because I'm honestly interested in your interpretation of these. At any rate, Eve is now having a crisis of conscience, and Lily goes into full-blown denial. Returning to Oracle, it turns out he actually knew all of this all along, and he basically just recaps everything that we've just learned, but he does add one interesting detail. So it seems that for a time, organic humans and Andro-Eidos actually lived side by side in relative peace. However, at some point, Mother Sphere basically just said, nah, OG humans, they get sick, they die, better just to get rid of them now. But hey, good news, with this latest hypercell, Oracle can now locate the next Alpha Natiba, and turns out, we're going to space. So 2 things here happened that I didn't really expect. First off, even Lily doubled down on seeing this whole genocide through. And second, up until this point, I had been pretty sure that Oracle was in cahoots with Mother Sphere. But here he mentions that not only is there more to the story, which he's not telling us, but he actually suggests that we get it from the Elder Natiba itself. So at this point I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's actually on the opposite side of Mother Sphere. And that's causing me to question all these rumors that we've been hearing floating around. Now, there has always been a bit of conflict between some of these rumors, so there has always kind of been a question of, what's true, what's a lie, and that kind of has been coming up quite a bit. But yeah, now I'm starting to get a better idea of what I'm thinking is actually happening. And suddenly all the pieces are starting to fall into place. So, airborne members are called angels, right? But these angels literally fall from the heavens. And beyond that, remember back when I was talking about footprints in the sand? Yeah, that wasn't a completely random tangent. I actually was wondering if you would notice something. If you look at the footwear in this game, some of it looks like this. Now, originally I just chalked that up to the whole sexy androids and heels thing, except there's no heel here. These are just digigrade feet. And look at the split sole design. Looks kind of like cloven hooves, right? And the 6th Airborne Squad uniform even has what looks like a barbed tail. So, are we actually the demons here? Alright, I'm just going to nip this in the bud right here because I'm sure some of you are already pounding through your comments. I'm joking. Well, okay, so I'm half joking. I know a couple of the Natiba have demonic names, and some of the Androidos, specifically the Royal Guard, do seem to follow angelic patterns in their naming with the L suffix. But there is a lot of iconography in this game. For example, several Natiba sport what look like cherub heads, and we're going to actually see a bit more coming up, so just keep an eye out for that. So next stop is the orbital elevator, aka the Spire, but before we do that, we may or may not be taking a slight detour. If you've been filling out the databank and doing side quests, you might have noticed this Lily meter counting up in the corner of the screen. If you've maxed it, Lily's going to ask us if we can make a quick stop at Eidos 9. And being a completionist, I had my Lily meter maxed out ages ago. So off to Eidos 9 it is. And it's worth pointing out that this right here, at this point, is finally when I realized that Lily had not been stuck in a pod for 2 years. So yeah, it took this long to clear up that little point, and it's optional content. So what she was doing in that pod, we're never going to find out how she got there. So you're just going to have to come up with your own headcanon. For me, I just assumed she was looking for some salvage at the pod, and the Alpha showed up, so she went and hid inside and got stuck. Anyway, making our way through Eidos 9, we come to Lily's atelier, which is a veritable Garden of Eden, and she leaves us while we get to just kind of, take in the space. So she goes down into her workshop, comes back up, and when she does, she introduces us to her closest friend who recently went into a deep sleep because her body cell became damaged. So it turns out this girl's name is Iberus, and she also just happens to be the colony's greatest hacker. And the reason Lily wanted to come here was to pick up her hacking algorithm because she thinks that's going to be helpful to us in the future. So that out of the way, we are on our way to the Spire. Now, on the way there, Adam receives a message from Zion, and it looks like things are not going so well, but it's too late for us to turn around. So Eve says, just drop me off and head back, but Lily points out we actually have a hover bike, so he can just take that while we continue our way to the Spire. Adam agrees, and we split ways. So the Natiba at the Spire are a little bit different. For one, they're integrated with machines, so they do seem to be slightly more intelligent than your average Natiba. There's also one in particular that not only retreats when it looks like it's been defeated just to fight later, but it has been actively stalking us. So they are showing more intelligence than what we've been accustomed to in the past. Also in the Spire, we get this cherry of a set piece. Basically, you need to zigzag your way across a parking lot to get to the main terminal, but there are some turrets posted above you which are going to fire on you and can two-shot you and can stun lock you. And not only that, but at the beginning, they're firing at regular intervals, but they get kind of out of sync. So they're kind of firing at irregular intervals at a certain point. And yeah, it is just a painful experience, and I just had to share it with you. And as a reward for getting through it, we get our first glitch of the game. Which, this is actually the only glitch that I got in the game through 3 playthroughs. So yeah, the game is actually pretty polished, and I will take this one glitch. So finally, we make it to the orbital elevator, and on our way up, of course, it breaks down, because this is a video game, and it turns out that there's organic matter covering everything. So we're going to need to get outside and work our way around and get to another part of the orbital elevator so we can continue working our way up in what is quite possibly the most sphincter-clinching segment of this entire game. Making our way back inside, we're able to locate a passenger lift and are introduced to Arissa, a very early Android model who shows us some pretty views while we wait. But wait, what's that? Is it today's sponsor? No, because we're a small channel and we don't have any sponsors. We just do everything for free because actually we enjoy making this content. That said, if anybody out there does want to sponsor us, we are open to the idea of selling out. Anyway, back to Arissa. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This game has its own variation of the lusty Argonian maid. Also, Arissa's dead now. And I'd like to point out that when this happens, the music actually distorts.
심각한 파손 발생. 복구 불가.
So when this happened the first time, I thought that maybe my game was glitching or something, but after subsequent playthroughs, I realized that this is actually by design, and it's kind of a cool detail, so kudos, Shift Up, well done. But don't worry, Arissa's not the only Arissa here. Although I am not so sure you'll be doing any Lifts Her Tail roleplay with this amalgamation. But, you know, I try not to judge. Try being the key word here because, yeah, I am actually judging really hard right now. Just past that, we finally reach the top, and... But wait! This is not the alpha you are looking for. You know who is, though?
Biblically accurate angel.
Okay, it's a few hundred eyes short, but come on. Which we use the last of our energy to railgun into oblivion. And with that, it's the end of the Alpha Natiba. But unfortunately, to be able to do this, Eve had to give up what was left of her reserve energy. Also, we've lost the Alpha Core. So, resigned to her fate, Eve slowly drifts back to the Earth, entering the atmosphere, returning ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The end. What luck! Seems the bunker has picked up our signal and sent a Yorha flight unit to pick up 2B and 9S. Wait, no. The colony has picked up our signal and sent a Providence exoskeleton to pick us up. Back on Earth, we have a happy reunion with Lily, and it's time to catch up with Adam. So off to Zion, which isn't looking too hot, or, depending on semantics, is looking very hot. Either way, there's no time to lose, so we beeline it for Oracle's chamber. Getting there, my main man is looking pretty gutted, and the person responsible is our old friend, the Black-Winged Natiba. But plot twist, she can talk now. And there seems to be a bit of a one-sided rivalry going on here. And I'm not sure what we did to piss her off, but I can give her a new reason to hate us. And wouldn't you know it, she's a suit? So Raven falls out, and without so much of a how do you do, Pillar of Bloods herself right out the ceiling, which is not weird at all. But no time for that, because we're going to head over to the cradle to make sure everything's okay, and that's where we find Oracle. So, fun fact, he's actually an Alpha Natiba. The first Alpha Natiba, in fact. And this is, again, where things get a little bit fuzzy. So, once again, he starts using the word human a lot, and it's not really clear which version of human he is referring to. So basically, here's what he says in order. I am the first Alpha Natiba. I killed many humans. I was abandoned like everyone else after the colony extinction. The humans took me in. I lost the will to fight. I sealed the power of the Alpha. I founded Zion to protect the surviving humans. So at first glance, it just seems like what he's saying is he was part of the initial human-android war, but then was abandoned like everyone else when the colony extinction occurred, at which point the organic humans took him in, and he became the first Alpha Natiba, and then later founded Zion as a safe haven for the survivors, the remaining Androidos on the surface. Small problem, though. The colony extinction was a result of the Natiba taking over the orbital elevator, meaning that organic humans had already transformed by that point, meaning that the humans that took him in would have to be Androidos. But if that's the case, how did he become the Alpha Natiba, and what happened to the people that took him in? Now, alternatively, it could have been that he became the Alpha Natiba before the colony extinction when the other Natiba were showing up, and so the quote-unquote humans that he killed were Androidos. Now, personally, I have another theory, but it kind of depends on the ending, so I'm going to save that explanation for later. Also, as a bit of a side note, of the 5 Alpha Natiba that we've seen, the 3 we have backgrounds on were all Androidos. Taki, Raven, and Oracle. So is the difference between a regular Natiba and an Alpha Natiba that regular Natiba were originally human, organic human, whereas Alpha Natiba were Androidos? There's actually nothing in this game that suggests that, but given just the fact that the 3 we do know were Androidos, has me wondering that. So hopefully we'll get something that clears that up in maybe a future entry or DLC. Anyway, Zion is saved, so we say our last goodbyes to everyone and set out for the nest to face off with the Elder Natiba. Arriving, Lily decides that she wants to join the fight, so she hops inside the Providence and we are ready to rock and roll. But before we do, it seems that Raven has left us one last legacy in the ruins of a fallen colony module. Turns out the Natiba did not cause the colony extinction, at least not directly. The true culprit was, shocker, Mother Sphere. The Natiba did make their way up the orbital elevator, but Mother Sphere, rather than risking infestation, felt that it would be better to drop an entire orbital ring and 30 colony modules. You know, rather than just taking out the orbital elevator. Now, Lily does not take this news well, but we're on the clock and Raven is just around the corner waiting for round 2. So she goes full anime villain, laugh and all. She starts monologuing about how Mother Sphere betrayed us and all Airborne Squad members, and even if we do defeat the Elder Natiba, knowing what we know now about the truth, Mother Sphere would never allow us to return to the colony. The Elder Natiba, on the other hand, welcomes us with open arms, and even tasked her with leading us to him, thus the legacies. She's not all that happy about it though, you know, it's the whole, "it should have been me" shtick. So yeah, we're not worthy, and she's going to prove herself. And given the last few boss themes have been this, I really wasn't expecting this. So another sidebar, when you beat the game, you actually unlock Raven's outfit. So my second playthrough, I thought, hey, I'm gonna be clever. Let's play a game of who wore it best. And she did. 3 times in a row. Eventually, we managed to disarm her, but rather than killing her, we decide to leave her paralyzed so that she can witness the end of the Elder Natiba. Entering the nest, Eve and Lily are blown away by the beauty of the organic life found inside. We make our way through and finally come face to face with the Elder Natiba, who, lo and behold, is Adam. That's right, it turns out that the true Elder Natiba was the friend we made along the way. He apologizes for leading us on, but to be fair, we are agents of Mother Sphere sent here to kill him, so if he had been a little bit more upfront, yeah, we probably wouldn't have been so receptive to some of these truths that we've now learned. Eve's not having it though, questioning the attack on Zion, to which Adam says yes, he was working with Oracle and Raven, but that doesn't mean that they each still have their own motivations. He did task Raven with leaving the legacies for us, but everything beyond that was her own, and it was not his intention. He also laments what the Natiba have become, stating that organic humans were too afraid and weak to accept the Androidos, and in a bid to survive, ultimately ended up sacrificing their own humanity. Androidos, on the other hand, though, were never truly human either, as Mother Sphere created them from scratch without any human DNA, so there is no true inheritor to the human race. But he has a proposal. The union of the most advanced Androidos with the last surviving Natiba that hasn't given in to its spacer instincts to create a new, undivided humanity. Now, Lily is really not a fan of this idea, but Adam insists that he really wants what's best for everyone, so, as a show of good faith, he gives Lily the last hypercell Zion is going to need to wake up everyone. That way, no matter what path Eve chooses, at least the future of Zion is secure. So at this point, we're given a choice. Take Adam's hand or refuse. Either way, the Elder Natiba will cease to exist and Eve's mission will be complete. So here's my thought process. So yeah, I take his hand. Eve absorbs Adam and becomes a magic girl, which Lily seems disturbingly okay with. I mean, I get it, Adam was a Natiba, but come on, he was your friend too, right? You're not even just the slightest bit sad that he's gone. But there's no time to mourn, because Mother Sphere immediately makes her dissatisfaction known by engaging the Providence and locking Lily inside. Getting the Providence down to about 25% of its life, it reboots, and depending on whether or not you max that Lily meter, one of two things is going to happen. If you didn't max it, Lily gets electrocuted in the reboot. And real quick, let's take a look at this thing in the databank. Yeah, seems that wasn't a bug, it was a feature. Once it's destroyed, we pull Lily out of the wreckage, and yeah, seems she's finally lost her faith in Mother Sphere because she doesn't want us to return her memories anymore. Outside the nest, we meet an avatar of Mother Sphere who congratulates us on a job well done, even if the final result was disappointing, and announces the end of the Eve Protocol as dozens of ships appear in the sky and even more pods come crashing down around us. Seems Raven was right. Mother Sphere won't let us return to the colony after everything we've learned. And so the game ends with Eve making one final last stand. Now, if you did max Lily, she manages to use Eberus's hacking algorithm to escape the Providence when it reboots. Upon defeating the Providence, once again we head outside to come face to face with the avatar of Mother Sphere. Seems she's thankful that Adam's dream of unifying the Androidos and Natiba has come to fruition. And once again, dozens of ships appear in the sky with even more pods crashing down around us. And once again, the game ends with Eve making one final last stand. Well, it is a little bit different, because in this ending, we do get an end of credits scene where Eve is surrounded by the corpses of her sisters, Lily uses the final hypercore to restore power to Zion, and Eve is now its new protector. Now, why Mother Sphere throws wave after wave of Angel at us in both these endings, we don't know, it's not answered, we won't find out unless we get a sequel or DLC, but my guess is she's doing it to collect data. Now, whether she is testing us to make sure that we are actually living up to her expectation, or if she actually does want us dead and then just collect data on our body, like, how did Adam do it? How can I create a better Andro-Eidos? I'm not really sure. You're just going to have to headcanon your own answer there. I don't think she's just doing it, though, because she's afraid of a superior species, because from what we read and see of Mother Sphere, it doesn't really seem like she has an ego that works that way. But wait! What if we don't take Adam's hand? Now, to be honest, this is actually pretty much the main reason I wanted to make this video, because I just find this ending really compelling. I don't think it's the canon ending because, yes, you are killing your friend, and the idea of killing your friend versus fusion seems like a bad ending. Also, if we're going for, biblical references, right? Lilith rejects Adam, whereas Eve accepts him, and in this case, Lily was against the idea of fusion, so, Eve should go along with it. So if I had to guess, I would say probably the Lily survives and fusion ending is the canon ending, but this one is still really compelling. So Lily refuses Adam's hand on the grounds that she wants to be able to make her own decisions. She doesn't want to just do what Mother Sphere or the Elder Natiba ask her to do. But strangely enough, her decision is to do exactly what Mother Sphere wants her to do. It's not to just walk away and try to find a way to live in peace. No, it's, I have to kill the Elder Natiba. And Lily backs this up, but Adam restrains Lily, saying this is Eve's decision and she needs to face it on her own and basically accept the full burden of responsibility. So the first part of this fight is actually kind of depressing. Adam doesn't really attack. He does have one attack, but he uses it extremely rarely. Mostly all he does is just kind of dodge and, move away or walk around. It's almost as if he's giving us one last chance to reconsider our choice. And he mentions that same line that he brought up before, this is not the kind of mistake that you can make twice, right?
방금 뭐라고?
Before we tried to not live in peace. We decided that there had to be war. One side had to destroy the other. And look what happened to the world. Now he's trying to rectify that by making a new choice, unification. But if we choose destruction again, can we really afford to make that mistake again? Now, eventually you do weaken him enough that Lily is able to escape. And when she does, she immediately goes on the offensive. And Adam seems disappointed by this. So he apologizes and takes the Providence out of the fight, but Lily is actually intact. She's perfectly safe. Now, this happens so quickly that Eve jumps in the way to defend Lily, even though she didn't really need to. But with this action, it becomes blatantly clear that there is not going to be any sort of reconciliation here. There has to be a fight. And Adam cannot allow the old humanity to just go, quietly. He has to give it his all, and this comes down to the classic question.
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
But in a way, it's kind of flipped because it's not the classic. Normally, the idea is die with dignity or, live as some horrible human being. But here, if he dies, humanity is erased completely. Mother Sphere will not allow the memory of the organic humans to survive. So, in a way, fighting as a monster is the more honorable thing because at least then he's defending the thing that, he loved and wanted to save. But to do that, he's going to have to sacrifice the last of his humanity and actually become the monster. And then it happens. The music shifts and it's something familiar. I know I've heard this before, but I can't quite put my finger on it. And it's not until subsequent playthroughs that it comes to me. The Hall of Records. The Flooded District. The Hideaway in Matrix 11. Places that people once gathered, places that held memories of hope for a better future. These are places that humanity had survived and hoped for a better future, but it's too late to turn back now. This wasn't the kind of mistake that we could make twice. Defeating Adam, the weight of what we've done finally sets in. Humanity is gone, and what replaces it is left to us. The nest begins to collapse, and we quickly escape outside. Mother Sphere is there, and she respects our choice, but she doesn't particularly relish in it. She sends a ship to pick us up, and Eve and Lily get on board, and we return to the colony, but upon reaching it, something's off. And I guess we're going to have to wait for a sequel to find out. Okay, so that's the main game, but what's going on in the background here? Now, unfortunately, there's no timeline, so even though multiple events are referenced, we don't really have a good idea of how far apart they are, and in some cases, we don't even really necessarily know the exact order that things happened. So here's my personal take on basically the history of what's been going on in the background here. So way back when, Raphael Marx, who also happens to be Adam, yeah, I know, he doesn't mention this at any point in the game, but the databank seems to try to gaslight us into believing that we were told this in the final confrontation. Anyway, Raphael Marx built Mother Sphere to help humanity with issues like global warming and that sort of thing. But rather than that, Mother Sphere thought, you know what? Instead of trying to adapt the environment to fit humans, let's just adapt humans to fit any environment, and thus the creation of the Androidos. Mother Sphere, however, ultimately has no interest in what's best for humanity. She's only interested in the best humanity. So when she created the Androidos, she kind of saw them as the inheritors of humanity, and being superior to the organic humans, she felt that the organic humans no longer had any use. This is also why she abandoned everybody on the surface after the colony extinction. See, she doesn't really care about the individual, just the whole. So if she can create better Androidos in space, forget all the ones on the planet. And I believe this is what Oracle is referring to when he says that he killed many people. I think he was one of the Androidos sent to destroy the organic humanity. Now, as we know, organic humans were inevitably driven underground, and led by Raphael Marx, aka Adam, begin developing methods to force human evolution so that they can compete with the Androidos. Now, this is speculation on my part, but I think this was intended to be a multi-step project, with stage 1 being to create the strongest, most durable subjects possible to be used as bioweapons, and then in later stages stabilize the process so that they could ascend the general populace. At any rate, Mother Sphere eventually discovers these facilities and decides she wants to destroy them, which ultimately ends up releasing the Natiba. Now again, whether this contamination leak was intentional or unintentional on Mother Sphere's part, or if this was a last-ditch effort by the humans to fight back, we don't know, but it doesn't really matter, because at any rate, the Natiba begin infesting the surface and the final war begins. At this point, Mother Sphere begins selectively calling up certain Andro Eidos to the colonies, and this caused some resentment with the people who are left planetside. Eventually, the Natiba take one of the orbital elevators, causing Mother Sphere to collapse one of the colony rings and 30 modules. At this point, survivors on the surface lose their connection with the network, and this leaves them to feel that Mother Sphere has abandoned them. At this point, Oracle is taken in by someone, and it's probably a pretty safe guess to say it was Adam. Now, it's not really clear when Raphael Marx became Adam, the Elder Natiba. He is said to be the first Natiba, but again, it's not really clear if, the Natiba that were first attacking were in fact actual humans that had transformed, or were just, bioweapons created from human DNA. So it could be that the original Natiba were in fact, just these creations from human tissue, but Adam was the first fully formed human to become a Natiba, and that's why he's the Elder Natiba. That's not really clear. Maybe we'll get some answers in a sequel or DLC. Anyway, what I'm guessing is that at this point, Adam had already come to regret, the creation of the Natiba and the destruction it had caused, and so he was trying to find a way to rectify it, and Oracle was his first attempt at unifying the Natiba with the Andro Eidos. Now, it didn't work entirely, so he didn't become whatever, Eve becomes at the end, but he did become an Alpha Natiba. Now, what we do know is that after this point, Oracle establishes Zion as a haven for the Andro Eidos who survived a colony extinction. Around this same time, Mother Sphere initiates the Eve Protocol with the goal of evolving the Andro Eidos further. Now, what we get in the databank on the Eve Protocol is speculation from somebody who's observing the angels, but if what they say is correct, it seems that Mother Sphere specifically made the angels somewhat ignorant of the past and of the surface world, and that's why Eve seems so surprised by so many things that she learns throughout the game. And the reason that Mother Sphere made them ignorant was because she wanted to see how they would adapt and survive on the surface. And it's also worth noting that in the databank, it is pointed out that a lot of times the angels are actually quite unsuccessful. So it seems that Mother Sphere actually intended for them to fail over and over and over again so that she could learn from their failures to create better Andro Eidos to eventually create Eve, who is kind of this culmination of all of that. Now, Raven was deployed with the 2nd Airborne Squad, and after meeting Adam, she became sympathetic to the organic humans upon learning the truth, and, like Oracle, was turned into an Alpha Natiba. I'm guessing, again, this was probably a second attempt to, have that perfect species, but again, it failed, and that's why Raven, it just has this grudge against Eve, because she really feels that, she wanted to be this thing that Adam wanted, and she can't be it, and that just makes her angry that Eve is, replacing her as this dream of his. Lily and Eberus later deploy with the 5th Airborne Squad. However, unlike other Airborne Squad members, I think Eberus actually was aware of the truth and what was happening with Mother Sphere, because why create an algorithm to hack Mother Sphere's tech unless you think that that's going to be a threat in the future? Eventually, the Eve Protocol culminates with the 7th Airborne Squad and Eve, being the ultimate Andro Eidos, tasked with taking out the Elder Natiba. Now, Adam knows this is his best chance at creating that final fusion that he wants of Natiba and Andro Eidos, so he sends Raven out to put the legacies there so that Eve can find them and come to the truth, with hopefully the goal of convincing her that fusion is the best thing for everyone's future. Raven does not like this, though. She wanted to be the one. So when she sees Eve and Taki on the beach, she goes ahead and attacks them. Adam saves Eve from the attack, but Raven takes Taki and, in her anger, ends up turning Taki into another Alpha Natiba. And that just about wraps it up. So there's still plenty of mysteries out there, We don't know exactly who killed those people in the flooded district. I mean, I have an idea, I have a theory, but we don't know that for a fact. There's also, we don't know if there are other organic humans hiding out there. We have no idea what's going on in the colony. So hopefully we'll be getting more on this world either in a DLC or a sequel at sometime soon. Also, as I said, there's no official timeline available, so I am making some guesses here. So if you interpreted things differently, or if you think things might have happened in a slightly different way, go ahead, leave a comment. You know, I'm open to suggestions. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe for hopefully more content like this in the future. It is quite an undertaking to make such a long video, but, you know, every like and comment really helps. So with that, thanks for watching, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.